Last week, an 18-year-old went to a supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, where he then live-streamed him shooting and killing 10 people. His manifesto was released, and there were some details that the mainstream media has left out. Then you might have heard about the great placement theory this past week. I'm going to explain what it is and what it is not, since the left is blaming Fox host Tucker Carlson for this mass shooting. Then, just like every time there is a mass shooting, the left politicizes it and tries to push for stricter gun control. I'll be giving the argument that more guns equals less crime. I'm Solomon, and this is the solo show. Again, guys, I'm going to have a little intro right there. I'm getting it made, hopefully in a week or two. So, last week, May 14th, an 18-year-old went to the supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, where he then killed 10 people and injured a few more. He also live streamed this event on Twitch. His manifesto was released, and the mainstream media left out quite a bit of details. I went through the manifesto, and there was a few things I haven't seen the mainstream media bring to light. So, he chose this specific gun. It's the Bushmaster XM15 because he knew that the changes to the gun laws that we push will help his case. That was said in his manifesto. You know, if you don't know what a Bushmaster XM15, it's kind of like the ideal AR-15 look. He said it was really easy to shoot. He said that it was really controllable, and he liked the caliber of bullet that it takes. So, when he was asked why did he choose Buffalo, New York, he said, and I quote, "New York has heavy gun laws, so it would be easy me if I knew that any legally armed civilians was limited to 10 rounds or cocked firearms." So, kind of breaking that down, he knew he was going to come in with a better weapon. He knew that New York has such strict gun laws that there wasn't going to be that many people that were civilians that were armed, knew how to fire, and if they did, they were limited to only 10-round magazines. And most civilians don't walk around with multiple magazines on them. He came prepared. The Buffalo shooter came prepared. He had a couple magazines, so he was able to reload and all that. There was one security guard that did fire back. I can't remember his age. I want to say 56-year-old black security guard. He did shoot back, but the Buffalo shooter did have a vest on, so he wasn't able to, disarm the assailant. So, next thing I would want to talk about was that a lot of people try and paint him out to be as a right-leaning, conservative Republican, when in fact, when he was asked if he's left-wing or right-wing, he says, sure, depending on the definition. But then the very next question was, where does he line up on the political compass? He says, mild to moderate authoritarian left category, and I would prefer to call myself a populist. So, if you see that, this was just like, a conservative Republican that was brainwashed by Tucker Carlson, that is absolutely false. Because he literally says he's left authoritarian left. Sorry about that. So, he also says, he's a racist, a fascist, a white supremacist, intolerant, and an anti-Semite. Horrible guy. But when he was asked if he's conservative, he says, no, conservatism is corporatism in disguise. I want no part of it. So, I just really been seeing a lot of people say that he was conservative or right-leaning when, in fact, he's neither of those things. Then he goes on to, quote the Great Replacement Theory a lot. So there's been a lot of misconceptions of what the Great Replacement Theory is. You'll see the left kind of say a lot of up to 60% of Republicans believe in the Great Replacement Theory, which is false. By definition, the Great Replacement Theory is an ethno-nationalist theory warning that indigenous European or white people population is being replaced by your non-European immigrants. So they're kind of saying white population is going to be important for what I'm going to be talking about later. So, kind of a little bit of a recap of what I got from the manifesto. He chose a place where he knew not that many civilians were going to be armed. He knew what he was doing there. He's kind of trying to push, he wants the white birth rate to go up, and he's going to be killing people that are not homelands to America. Basically, that would be black and Mexicans, basically. And then, this guy is not going to be a part of the conservatism movement or anything like that. This is something in its own category, I would say. So what I've been seeing is the left been blaming Tucker Carlson and the right on how they believe in the Great Replacement Theory. And, according to the Atlantic, in recent years, Fox News has amplified the same line of argument with popular hosts such as Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham. Echoing its logic, Carlson, for example, has said that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. So the reason why this isn't the Great Replacement Theory is because the Great Replacement Theory is saying that white humans are being replaced by, non-European immigrants. It's not saying anything about voters. It's not saying anything about, how it's going to be mostly Democratic votes or anything like that. Nowhere in there says anything about voting. It just says indigenous Europeans population is being replaced by non-European immigrants. That's by definition what it is. What the Atlantic is trying to paint it as is that how the left or the Democrats are really pushing for, open borders, letting as many immigrants as they want in, basically not having any guidelines. So, that's something that the right does care about. We don't care for illegal immigrants. We care more for legal immigrants coming the right way, not just coming in. And the reason why that's worrying the right is because when you let in as many immigrants as you want, that is basically, and you let them vote, that basically it's going to let it be Democrats are going to be in office longer term since they're going to have the majority vote. That's what Republicans are worried about, and that's why we want safe and secure borders. The Atlantic went on to say it's Republicans who are echoing the Great Replacement Theory. Huff, the conservative Putin, Ben Shapiro, National Review, editor-in-chief Rich Lurie posted that it was true that Democrats want higher levels of immigration to change national elections, which is also true, but that is not the Great Replacement Theory. The Great Replacement Theory is replacing the white population with non-European immigrants. So again, the Atlantic Post has this completely wrong. Lastly, the last thing that I have from the Atlantic is the view on the Great Replacement Theory. They claim there's two versions. That the idea that a secure Kabul, typically one that is composed of Jews, is fostering demographic change in the United States through immigration in order to replace its white population. The motive of the mass murderers in Pittsburgh, El Paso, and now Buffalo. The second is that liberals are fostering demographic change in the United States through immigration in order to replace its white population. So the second version or idea of the Great Replacement Theory is not the Great Replacement Theory. What they're talking about in the second, where it says liberals are fostering demographic change in the United States through immigration in order to replace its white population, it's talking about its voting, the way that we vote basically. If you give illegal immigrants a vote in the United States vote and they're not a citizen, then they're gonna most likely vote for who let them in and kind of whoever had open borders, which is the Democrats. So that's what the right is worrying about. It's it's not the Republicans thinking that the left is replacing white people or anything like that. It's just talking simply about voting. So next, let's get into how the left has politicized mass shootings to talk about gun control. So one of the reasons for gun control, or even why we don't need guns, is because we have the police. I see that all the time from the left, even though the average time for police officers to respond is around 18 minutes, and home invasions last from anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes, and some as quick as 90 seconds. So a gun would be a lot faster to get to than dialing 911. Then they also argue that guns should have a magazine cap of 10. So they argue this since it would be harder to reload than to keep firing, but there's really no difference between the two. You have like a regular pistol, you go bang, bang, bang all the way to 10. All you do is drop the clip, get another clip, hit it in, cock it back, boom, another 10 bullets. It's 20 bullets within seconds. So, so what you're really so by pushing this, you're limiting what regular civilians are going to be having. So in most home invasions, it's committed by 2 or more people. And, regular citizens don't have the advantage or firearm expertise to be able to hit each 10 rounds in a home invasion, And then, you could go in and back say, like, how about the reload time? You said it was seconds, but think about it. It's a citizen in its home. He could have been asleep. His adrenaline's going to be pumping. He's going to be nervous. is he going to really be able to, reload and cock it back and be able to fire 10 more rounds? I think, by giving them access to more rounds per magazine, it gives them more of an advantage against these home intruders. Then, if you've been watching recent news, you see Joe Biden and the other people on the left wanting to ban these weapons of war, as they say. The question I ask is, what makes a weapon of war? The military has used a wide range of firearms and knives in war, so, they don't really make a clear distinction. I think they're mostly referring to rifles from so they're wanting to remove these rifles and, kind of leave handguns and other weapons. But, there is no evidence removing rifles will lower gun violence since, 86, or this is all according to the FBI, 86% of all firearm crimes are involved handguns. Then 56% of those murders were committed with handguns. Only 3% with rifles and 5% with shotguns. So there are no facts to support Joe Biden and the left that we should ban these rifles or weapons of war, like they like to call them. You don't really see too many of them trying to ban handguns because, of course, that's absurd. Just like, banning rifles or shotguns or any other type of weapons. These guns are tools. And just like any other tool, it's only good in the right hands. The next thing I'd like to bring up on why gun control doesn't bring less crime is, in fact, that it brings an equal playing field between a man and a woman. Look, like the left will tell you that there's no difference between man and woman, but there is a big physical difference. My girlfriend, she's 5'3", 110 pounds. She doesn't stand a chance of a guy, like, compared to a 6 foot, 180 pound man. If you try to rape her, she really wouldn't be able to defend herself physically just because there's such a difference. But, if she has a Glock 19 on there, Glock 19 on her, it really does equal the playing field. She's able to defend herself and kind of, again, equal the playing field. Then another point I have is that guns save more lives than they do take. So, according to the FBI, 45,222 people were killed due to gun violence in 2020. 54% of that was because of suicide, so we could go ahead and exclude that. So 43% is due to murder, and then I think it was 3% was other. So if we just take that 43% of murder, which is roughly about 15,000 deaths per year due to gun violence, and that's on the high side. And then if we go ahead and look at the other side of the equation, guns have saved from the low end 500,000 lives to, on the high end, 3 million lives per year. It varies so much just due to the fact that it's hard to get reports of guns used in self-defense when you didn't fire the gun. So if the left is proposing to take away guns, it's potentially harming 500 to 3 million lives, or 500,000 to 3 million lives, just for the little 15,000 deaths per year we have due to guns right now. And, another point I would like to hit is, if we ban these guns, we're only taking it out of civilians that are law-abiding. Criminals tend to break the law, so whether or not you make it illegal, they're going to still be able to get their hands on it. And then now, just like how the Buffalo shooter said, he knew New York has heavy gun law, so he knew that there wouldn't be any illegally armed civilians, and if there was, they were limited to 10 rounds. So I feel like banning guns is really just hurting, civilians that are doing it legally. And that's basically all I have for today, guys. Thank you for watching this through. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go ahead and give it a like. And I'll go ahead and see you guys on next week. See you guys.